Hey, what do you say we have ourselves even more Canucks trade talk? Yeah, that's right, it's February 1st, and Satyr Shah has just tweeted this out. Okay, maybe not just tweeted this out, this is from 3 hours ago, but today we are talking about how the Vancouver Canucks are now focused on acquiring an impact forward. The preference is a player in the mid-20s age range that can grow with the core. The main asset they have now is cap space to take on a contract, plus their own assets they didn't have to use to acquire a top 4D. Act 3 awaits. And the interesting thing about this report here, that the Vancouver Canucks are looking for a mid-20s ranged impact forward that can grow with the core, is that ever since this tweet was posted, and ever since a whole bunch of the other ensuing conversations were posted as well, there's been one name, essentially, that has really been tossed out there amongst the fans of this hockey team. Before we dive into that, though, as always, the show is brought to you by ExpressVPN. Go out there and check out the first link in the description to get yourself some savings, get yourself some free months on your VPN, and support the channel in the process. Let's dive into another comment made by Thomas Drance on Vancouver Canucks trade targets. From this point forward, finding another credible top line or top 6 caliber center is the top priority for the Vancouver Canucks. The club will be on the hunt for a center upgrade leading into the NHL trade deadline. And the funny part is, if you go back over to this tweet by Sat Shah, and you also look at this Thomas Drance commentary too, the number one name that Canucks fans seem to be bringing up mostly is Josh Norris, Quinn Hughes' best friend. Show replies, $8 million seems steep for Norris though, doesn't it? Would be a great fit, but he's not an $8 million player. Not with the cap going up, plus it makes him more affordable to acquire. Who would they trade for an impact forward though? Pettersson? Or is this like a package of lesser assets they'd move out? Even if they moved EP, they would need to find another forward regardless of the situation. Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying, so who do they move to add another impact forward? They have another first plus prospects. They've been willing to move guys other than Lekkerimaki and Willander. I mentioned cap space. Do they get a guy for cheaper because he's got a big contract, like a Norris or a Cousins, etc.? What would you think a package for, let's say, Norris might look like? I hope it's not Boeser for Norris 1-for-1. Norris has more upside than Boeser, taller and faster. So Norris's name has been tossed around there on this tweet, even in this reply section. Josh Norris, come on down. Joel Eriksson and Kyle Connor, okay, maybe not those two, but Josh Norris does seem to be the guy that Vancouver Canucks fans are speculating could be a pretty reasonable target in these conversations. In fact, this tweet was expanded upon and replied to by Sap, who went out there and said, "Sorry, Brock. Yeah, there's the Thomas Drance conversation. They're looking for a top 6 caliber center. Usually I don't speculate on individual trade targets," Sap says, but finding a package of Boeser plus for Norris, who is one of Hughes' closest friends, and having Lekkerimaki fill Boeser's spot is probably the best way for this franchise to move forward if they're truly retooling. It would make all of their core players, Petey, Norris, Hughes, Cheadle, Hronek, all 27 or younger. Lekkerimaki, EP25, and Willander are the ELCs to get you through that window. I just think it makes too much sense. And so talking about Josh Norris, yes, he's making $8 million a year till the end of 2030. That is just a shade under JT Miller, and you can say that Norris isn't really the player that JT Miller is. Norris, however, is 25. He's a lot younger than JT, and he is in a spot where you can say he's got more to show. He had a 55-point season in 21-22, with 35 goals on top of that in only 66 games played. He was on pace for 40 goals. He was on pace for doing some really good things. This season, though, he has been slowed down a little bit. 49 points is his point production pace. Not as good as the season he had prior to in 21-22, but still reasonably okay. When you think about Josh Norris and the fact that he is Quinn Hughes' best friend, a lot of people might ask, like, oh, why is that important? Why is that even a conversation point that we are bringing up here? Well, it's mostly because the franchise and the way this team is organizing their trades and what moves they're doing, they're pretty much committing to the bit here. They are saying that they want to remain competitive and they want to give Quinn Hughes all the reasons to go out there and say, hey, we're just retooling here, man. We're still trying to be competitive, so please don't leave. This team, this fan base, everybody in the executive, they all want Quinn Hughes to stay. And so they're going to do moves and they're going to put themselves in a spot to remain competitive to get Quinn Hughes to stay because they don't want this dude to leave in free agency. And if in a few years we get ourselves word that Quinn Hughes is not going to re-sign in Vancouver, then obviously they're going to have to trade him away, get a haul for Hughes, and they wouldn't want to do that. Jim Rutherford said they want to keep Hughes here in Vancouver forever, so why not try to make the guy the happiest he can by acquiring buddies of his and putting the team in a more competitive spot so that Quinn doesn't have to go through a rebuild. Really, Quinn Hughes is the Vancouver Canucks at this point. Like, he is the team. He is so good and so reasonably young that I think it's a fair argument. Like, hey, why would the Canucks make any move that would in turn piss off Quinn Hughes, either by indicating that the team is ready to rebuild or by keeping guys around that just contribute to the problem or just try to get younger or whatever. Like, the team needs to remain competitive so that Hughes wants to stay. Josh Norris is a potential 20-goal scorer this year, 30-goal scorer even, on pace for about 50 points, who does stand a chance to get better if he's given a better opportunity. You talk about Philip Cheadle and the skills that he has, the skills that he brings to the Vancouver Canucks lineup. He's the second-line de facto center right now. What if you got Norris and Cheadle? Who knows? There are other conversations that people are bringing up as to whether or not a Boeser for Norris trade makes sense. Rick Dhaliwal even replied to that Satir Shah tweet saying, hey, this must make Boeser feel great, since the Canucks' focus is now acquiring an impact forward. Even if they keep Boeser, they need to find another forward, Sat Shah replied. You're saying their focus is now on getting another forward. Well, yeah, Rick, we have a first line, 2 third lines, and a fourth. We need another forward. He said impact forward. So, people are kind of talking about semantics here on the trade front. There also was another conversation here posted onto The Athletic by, I think this was Drance? Yes, this was Thomas Drance. Article's behind a paywall, so we're not going to go out there and read it, but Drance does write this, that it goes without saying Boeser is the really big decision on the pending UFA file. My read of the situation is that the club views going to 8 years on Boeser's next contract as prohibitive, but management still likes the player and seems to be considering their options, even if contract talks have been largely quiet this season. So, it doesn't necessarily rule anything out. Is Boeser going to get traded? Could he get packaged in a deal for Josh Norris, for example, because everybody seems to be talking about Norris as a guy the Canucks could potentially target? All the description of what the insiders are saying the Canucks want, it all aligns with Josh Norris. So I want you to let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Is it worth it for Vancouver to try their darndest to keep Quinn Hughes around by acquiring a guy like Norris, a 25-year-old, $8 million center who is on a little bit of a decline, who has been slowed down by injuries, but at his best is a 40-goal, maybe even a 60, 70-point guy in the National Hockey League? I did see some Senators fans over the past few days talking about how they maybe wouldn't trade Josh Norris in a Pettersson deal, and I thought that was the most ridiculous thing on the planet. But those conversations did happen, and I did see some Sens fans defending the idea of keeping Norris because they like him in the room, for example. But if he's well-liked in the room and he's capable of producing some pretty good points, who knows if this guy is the kind of guy that's worth bringing over to Vancouver so that Quinn Hughes has even more reason to stay. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about this Canucks trade update. Do you think Josh Norris is an appropriate target? I hope you enjoyed this video, and bye.